In DeKalb County right now, thousands of people are under a boil water advisory as a water main break is now in its second day of repairs. Don Shipman has more.
It's very difficult not to be open.
Water main repairs stretching into a second day along a busy section of Claremont Road in DeKalb County. The owner of Atlanta Vintage Books keeping her doors open, but customers looking to rummage through their inventory of some 85,000 used books are tasked with navigating around orange cones.
Which is a shame because hasn't been the best week for business being open from the snow and everything.
The 30-inch main burst late Monday night, causing no or low water pressure for nearly 8,800 DeKalb water customers, or 22,000 people. DeKalb issuing a boil water advisory until further notice, impacting communities south of the break.
The lower part of the county is where the water is having difficulties reaching, so that's where you're going to have the lower water pressures, not around the area where the break is.
DeKalb County is also offering up free bottled water. All you gotta do is stop on over. Here's some right here at this gas station. You can also find it at a number of fire stations throughout the area.
We love our bookstore.
Back at Atlanta Vintage Books, they're using today's lull in customer foot traffic to spruce up and restock the shelves of their more than 3 decades old business.
We are going to stay open.
Joining us now to talk a little bit about making sure that the water we're drinking is safe. We have Rich Razgaits joining us, and you're the CEO of Flow Water, so you're a specialist in filtration. Thanks so much for being here.
Joy, thanks for having me here.
So, after this break, of course, thousands of people are under a boil water advisory. But of course, people have concerns maybe when the water does come back on that, they want to make sure that it's safe. What advice do you have for folks?
Well, a couple things. One is water breaks and water line breaks are not abnormal, especially when you have aging infrastructure that's been around for 30, 40, 50, 80 years. Construction, seismic activity, these are all things that can cause water line breaks. The thing that you worry about most with water line breaks, and the boil ban is in place, or the boil advisory is in place because of things like E. coli and other bacteria that can be really hazardous. So, in terms of what people do, one is you got to boil your water. So 3 minutes, rolling boil, that's one thing that you need to be able to do. And then if we go from there, there's other things as it relates to how you hydrate your pets and how you brush your teeth and wash your dishes and clean your clothes. So we can talk about that if you wish as well.
Yes. So what should we be thinking about? I mean, you had a couple of ideas for our viewers, when we were talking casually, things that we may not have thought of. A lot of times we make a distinction between water that's safe for drinking and water that's safe for showering. And you make a point that, hey, maybe if you have an open cut, it may not be safe for showering either.
Yeah, so if you're showering, which is fine to do, even if you're under a boil advisory, couple things. One is just be careful about the water that gets near your nose and mouth and any nasal passages or any oral passages. The other thing is just in terms of shaving, whether shaving your legs or shaving your beard, that's something that I would just skip during this period of time because there's various entry points for bacteria that you just want to avoid. Same thing goes with washing your clothes. When you're washing your clothes, you want to be able to use it on a high heat or a high wash cycle, but then you also want to make sure that they're fully dry and not damp before wearing them again. Same with washing dishes. It either needs to be with boiled water or you need to use the sanitized cycle in the washing machine or the dishwasher so that it reaches at least 155 degrees or higher.
And I could see that definitely with washing dishes. I'm a little surprised to hear you say that with washing clothes, that we have to really be as cautious as you say when it comes to washing clothes. Why is that?
Well, it's just because of the wetness of it. And so as long as it's fully dry, then you've really eradicated the potential for bacteria to be in there. But while clothes are damp, wet, moist, that is basically a carrier for bacteria, and you want to be able to eliminate that, and drying it fully is one way to eliminate that.
Okay, well, that's an interesting thought. You make a point that I don't want to say in one particular area, but really around the country, we're seeing aging infrastructure. It's just kind of the process of infrastructure, kind of as time passes, that things are going to break. Do you think that we need to think about filtration a little more, maybe as individuals and maybe as a society?
We do. I mean, the way I would think about drinking water today is that it's like you get in a car and you have a seatbelt and you have an airbag probably. But the seatbelt equivalent in the world of water in the United States today with the aging infrastructure is that we're really in a world where we have to treat our water twice, right? So municipal water does a great job and the best job that they possibly can in treating that water to get it to one place in time and one point in time. But then as that water gets delivered through very aged infrastructure where there's other pharmaceutical herbicides, pesticides, glyphosate, commonly known as Roundup, that make its way into the water, you really have to treat it at the point of dispense. And so we highly recommend that people either filter or purify their water when it's coming out because we have an infrastructure problem in the United States today. And there are chemical cocktails that are being formed in tap water, and that doesn't even touch upon things like lead and other heavy metals that are very pervasive across the United States. So ultimately, the way to solve this problem is treat your water twice.
You've talked about the fact that there are so many chemicals that we may not even be aware of that are just in the environment. Maybe even if we're on well water, perhaps, maybe in municipal water. It's a little bit concerning, quite frankly. And you have some background information you wanted to share about what is really regulated.
Well, in the United States today, there's a thing called the Safe Drinking Water Act of 1974, and it actually goes back 50 years, and it's been very minimally updated since then. And there are 94 contaminants that are regulated by the Safe Drinking Water Act of 1974. And many would argue that they're not even quite to the standard that American Academy of Pediatrics would actually ascribe to as it relates to lead, for example. The problem is there are tens and tens and tens of thousands of chemicals that are being used across the United States today. And that could be everything from agriculture to manufacturing, and all of this runoff ends up making its ways into lakes, tributaries, streams, and then ends up in municipal water. Municipal water was never designed to withstand the level of contamination that's happened to our soils and agricultural land as well as runoff over the last 50 years. And so we now live in a world where we've got tens of thousands of chemicals that are in use in the United States, only 94 of which are regulated by the Safe Drinking Water Act. So that's yet another reason why you really have to kind of take the seatbelt in your own hands, metaphorically speaking, snap it in, and you got to do that by filtering or purifying your water. Some people often think, well, I should just drink bottled water, but that has other problems as it relates to microplastics, nanoplastics. So that's not actually the solution. The solution is really filter and purify your tap water.
Oh, interesting. So microplastics and okay, I'd like to hear a little more about that to tell you the truth, because I drink a lot of bottled water.
Well, a lot of people do, and so there's worldwide there are 1 million bottles a minute, single-use plastic water bottles that are consumed every minute. And one of the things that people don't realize is that most of it doesn't make its way into recycling, and even if it gets put in the recycling bin, about 90% of it doesn't make its way through reclamation. And so unfortunately, so yes, everyone should recycle. The reality is it probably doesn't matter that much if you throw it in the blue bin. That's tragic. But it ends up in oceans, lakes, rivers, and landfills. And then plastic doesn't biodegrade. It just turns into lots of little tiny pieces, and those tiny pieces turn into things called nanoplastics, which you can't even see. And now we're literally drinking our plastic. So the average American is eating or drinking 1 credit card's worth of plastic every single week. And those people that drink bottled water, some data shows that they have 10,000 times the number of microplastics in their body, or up to, as a result of effectively water that's just sitting, baking in plastic, and that plastic breaks down, and then you end up ingesting it. And so kind of the headline on that is, quite unfortunately, even if you're not drinking bottled water, you are drinking your bottled water, and it's being found in everything from brain tissue, umbilical tissue, placentas, lungs, and we're literally turning into plastic. So that's one of the reasons that we got to extract it out and not let it get into our bodies in the first place.
Yeah, that makes sense. When it comes to filtration, what can people do, in their own homes to protect their own families? Is it expensive? Is it difficult to, basically filter your water and maybe, create more safeguards for yourself and your family?
This is a great question. And so people should take safeguards. And my advice always is, whatever safeguards you can take and that you can afford, something is better than nothing, right? So if you just have a single stage carbon filter that goes into your fridge, And sometimes they make like 3-ply carbon filters that have sediment and pre-sediment as well as carbon in it that goes into a fridge, and drinking out of a fridge filter is going to capture a lot of things. For example, microplastics. You can get almost all of those microplastics out with a fridge filter. If you want something that's more potent, that's going to remove things like Roundup, pharmaceuticals, herbicides, heavy metals, and just extract everything out of the water that should not be in there other than H2O. What you really want to look for is a system that does purification, and that's commonly known as reverse osmosis. At Flow Water, we have a proprietary form of that called advanced osmosis, which we put into businesses, hotels, schools, gyms, and corporations. But on the consumer side, gold standard is using something that's reverse osmosis, but I would certainly advocate for any type of filter is better than no filter, even if it's a minimal one or something that you just slide right into your fridge or you put into a pitcher on your countertop.
All right. Any final thoughts?
Well, ultimately, I think the best thing that we can do as consumers is advocate for ourselves. And so, we believe it's a fundamental human right that everyone has access to clean drinking water that they can trust, and that this is something that we need to restore in America today. And the best way that we're going to do that is by advocating for it. Some of those solutions are long-term, over tens of years, and might cost $1 trillion. Others are things that we can do today, and treating our water twice today is a safeguard that we can put in place for a healthier future as well as healthier families.
All right. Thank you so much, Rich Razgaits from Flow Water, with your insight into this.
Thanks, Troy.